It would be a bad move on my behalf if I preempted the president or previewed anything that the president was thinking about, considering, and so this is something that he's going to talk with his team about.
Biden commutes sentences of two of Chicago's area's most notorious fraudsters, right? So we're talking about kind of hiding in plain sight. 1,500 people? That's a lot of people. Who's all in there? Embezzled $54 million from a tiny town to fund a lavish lifestyle. Man, that's a lot. 54 million? Will the Biden administration criminals and colluders be held accountable, or will they get a preemptive pardon? Now that Joe has confirmed that some people are above the law, especially his son Hunty. What about Fauci? What about Liz Cheney and some of the others who are the worst of the worst over this last epoch? Here is what Eric Dougherty clipped for us, courtesy of Karine Jean-Pierre out at the White House, refusing to deny the possibility of a preemptive pardon for these very problematic individuals.
Some of the names that have been floated around preemptive pardon solutions, it would just be such an unusual, extraordinary step. We talked about in the news, we've seen Liz Cheney, Fauci.
You're talking about the preemptive pardoning.
Right. I understand you don't want to get ahead of the president's thinking, but are any of those names wrong? Or still, can you tell? I mean, do you want to tell us anything about?
It would be a bad move on my behalf if I preempted the president or previewed anything that the president was thinking about, considering, and so this is something that he's going to talk with his team about, and I just don't have anything beyond that for you.
Okay, so it's not a no. They were pretty unequivocal when it came to Hunter Biden. Remember, oh no, we're going to follow Jerry. No one's above the law. President respects justice. All those things never happened. Of course, they were lying the whole time. Now they've gotten a little bit sneakier on this. You can even see it right there in her face. She's like, she knows. She's like, I'm getting pardoned on Friday. Are you kidding me? I have no idea. Yeah, right. Okay, so we'll see if she gets one. We'll wait for that one. But today, the president did pardon 1,500 other Americans. And there were some things saying that there were some juicy people in here who got pardons. I'm not sure. I haven't gone through all 1,500 people. I did find some posts on X saying that there were some Chinese spies in here and so on and so forth. They did release the full list here, and the New York Times gave us a summary of it. They say most of those being granted clemency had been in home confinement during the pandemic. Some Republicans tried to push legislation that would have forced those people to go back to prison. And so 1,500 people were pardoned or commuted. 39 people were ultimately pardoned. And what I did see floating around, there were reports that this included Chinese spies, but what I actually found was those Chinese spies were pardoned and commuted earlier. So back in July 14, 2022, this guy, possession of CP and PDF files. So you can see, not good. 97 months in prisons. Shan Lin Jin, he got clemency from Joe. Ji Joquin, January 25th, 2023, conspiracy to defraud the United States. This guy, Yanjun Zhu, 240 months in prison, conspiracy to commit espionage, and that was a 2022 charge. 20 years in prison for espionage in Cincinnati, and then Biden commuted that one. Now, this was part of a deal with the Chinese, and you can see Yanjun Zhu right here was convicted, and Joe Biden commuted that puppy. They shipped him right back over to China. Signed this one November 22nd, 2024 this year. So they're coming in, and what we were contemplating was a pardon sandwich, right? Where you have a situation where you have a bad pardon, a set of good pardons, then a bunch of other bad pardons, then maybe a good pardon, so that people are kind of confused. You're almost hiding in plain sight, right? We talk about the Hunter Biden pardon, we talk about these 1,500 other people pardons, but we all kind of forget about Yanjun Zhu, who is a Chinese spy, clearly, who has now been shipped back off to China. So we'll keep our eye on it, but 1,500 people, they say they were serving their sentences at home. The Americans have been reunited with their families, and a bunch of people got clemency. He also, in 2022, gave a bunch of people other clemency. So you're kind of, you're hiding the needle in the haystack. You pardon a bunch of people, throw some really bad stuff in there, and then the New York Times forgets about or doesn't talk about the other stuff in the context of 1,500 pardons. So another question went over to Karine about some of this. Here's what that sounded like.
And so they're going to continue to review clemency petitions, he and his team, in normal course. And certainly they want to further the criminal justice reforms in a manner that advances equity and justice, promotes public safety, supports rehab and reentry, which is all the things that I said at the top, and provides, again, meaningful second chances.
All right. And so we were looking at some other things, and apparently this was another story from the Chicago Tribune. Biden commutes sentences of two of Chicago's area's most notorious fraudsters, right? So we're talking about kind of hiding in plain sight. 1,500 people? That's a lot of people. Who's all in there? Are there any bad hombres or what? President Joe Biden on Thursday got two of these. Former Dixon comptroller Rita Crundwell embezzled $54 million from a tiny town to fund a lavish lifestyle. Man, that's a lot. 54 million? Nobody notices that? A comptroller? Okay. Eric Bloom, the one-time leader of a Northbrook management firm who defrauded investors for $665 million. Wow. The decisions in the clemency petitions were announced in the massive list, 1499. Biden's orders don't wipe out their felony convictions, but it does end their sentences immediately. Crunwell, 71, he pleaded guilty in 2012, and she admitted she stole $53 million for over a decade. Incredible. She was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, but she had petitioned a federal judge for early release, poor health, and COVID. I've done everything in my power to be a model inmate. Never a day goes by I don't regret my crimes. She'd served about 8 years behind bars, and she got a pardon, right? Now, that's different. She's been in jail behind bars. Hunter Biden never went to jail at all. Bloom, meanwhile, the one-time head of a Sentinel group, was also convicted in a jury, secretly began exposing, asked my assistant. He was sentenced to 14 years. He's been serving prison as well. His sentence was due to expire in May, and so Joe Biden released him. And so I wonder if they have any donations to Democratic PACs or to Joe Biden's campaign. So those were a couple of the pardons, 1,500 of them in total. I'm expecting we're going to get a lot more. Kareen's probably on the list. She's like, I'll take one. If you're handing them out, I'll take one. We'll see what drops next. Thanks for subscribing, my friends. We'll see you back here when they do.